Coming up on EIV News at 6. In the aftermath of the nuclear crisis in Japan, find out how the United States plans to move ahead with its own nuclear power plants.
Plus, we'll tell you where President Obama hopes to begin importing oil as the civil war in Libya continues.
Now, leading the way with important local coverage, New England's Emmy winner for Best College Newscast, EIV News at 6.
Hello and welcome to EIV News at 6. I'm Wynn Harrison.
And I'm Greg Baroud.
Breaking news unfolding out of Libya tonight. British officials are saying Muammar Gaddafi's air force has been defeated. This comes days after the UN implemented a no-fly zone above the country in an effort to protect Libyan rebels and civilians. The UN must now decide who will lead the intervention. President Obama says he would like to give up the U.S.'s leading role. Gaddafi went on Libyan television this week to send a message to the world.
We will be victorious. We will achieve victory on behalf of the people. We have Allah with us. You have the devil on your side.
The UN has flown more than 300 patrols around Libya in recent days and fired more than 150 Tomahawk missiles. Meanwhile, in Japan, Tokyo officials are warning residents not to drink the nation's tap water. They say the water contains too much radioactive iodine, which is especially unsafe for infants and children. Tokyo officials believe this pollution was caused by problems at the Fukushima nuclear plant. The plant evacuated workers on Wednesday after black smoke was emerging from one of the nuclear reactors. Authorities say the death toll has now reached nearly 10,000.
And with the aftermath of Japan's earthquake fresh in our minds, many wonder if the same thing could happen here.
EIV's Joe Heyer spoke to experts to find out the likelihood of a major local earthquake.
We've seen all the images, and days later, we are still polarized by the videos and sounds of the Japanese earthquake and tsunami. But could it happen here? It's happened before. A 6.0 quake struck in the 1700s right off the coast of Cape Ann, causing severe damage to southern New England. Dr. John Ebal heads up the Weston Observatory at Boston College and says there are plenty of tectonic plates right here in New England.
Right now, though, we don't see the earthquakes lining up on the fault, so we don't know which faults are active.
But Boston's newer buildings could escape any significant problem.
I would not expect there to be total destruction if we had a major earthquake in the Boston area. A lot of buildings would be standing.
The Boston Redevelopment Authority estimates that at least 3/4 of the city's 100,000 buildings were built before seismic codes went into effect in 1973, and the city doesn't keep track of any upgrades these buildings have made. For those who have lived through earthquakes before, this information is a little unsettling. College student S.B. Guadieri survived a magnitude 6.8 earthquake in New Zealand in 2007 and found that being caught off guard by an earthquake can be the most concerning part.
I've never experienced it before. I've only had like little tremors, and we always have earthquake drills at school, but it was freaking being caught off guard and like all of a sudden the house is shaking.
In order to avoid being caught off guard, FEMA says it's important to have an evacuation plan in place ahead of time. Reporting in downtown Boston, for EIV News, I'm Joe Heyer.
Now, despite the nuclear crisis in Japan, one New England power plant won't be closing its doors anytime soon. Monday, federal officials granted a 20-year license renewal for the Vermont Yankee nuclear power plant. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders has already called for a suspension of the license. As the Japanese nuclear meltdown continues, many consider the renewal to be inappropriate. For the plant to be officially relicensed, the Vermont legislature must also approve it in the months to come. Meanwhile, California lawmakers are calling for a local seismic report before extending their own nuclear operations. State senators want to ensure their two nuclear plants could withstand a major earthquake similar to the one devastating Japan. The Diablo Canyon and San Onofre plants are under review by nuclear regulation officials. The state of California lies on the San Andreas fault line, and experts worry the facilities could suffer a meltdown in the event of an emergency. These nuclear doubts, combined with civil unrest in the Middle East, have prompted President Obama to search for new oil suppliers. Obama met with Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff to discuss the country's trade agreements. Brazil has recently discovered a large oil supply just off the coast, and Obama is now stressing the importance of forming a stronger alliance.
By some estimates, the oil you recently discovered off the shores of Brazil could amount to twice the reserves we have in the United States. We want to work with you. We want to help with technology and support to develop these oil reserves safely. And when you're ready to start selling, we want to be one of your best customers.
President Rousseff says she shares Obama's interest in working together, and she hopes this new relationship will help bolster Brazil's growing economy.
And as Obama continues his first term in office, one of his opponents for the 2012 election has finally emerged. Former Minnesota Governor Tim Pawlenty has taken his first step towards a campaign. He's now forming a presidential exploratory committee. Pawlenty announced his candidacy via Facebook this week. He says he hopes to decrease the national deficit, even if it means changing long-standing programs such as Medicare and Social Security.
A couple months ago, the groundhog told us that we would have an early spring, and lo and behold, still snow.
I don't understand it, Greg. Maybe Mike Ciccone has more.
And good evening, I'm Mike Ciccone with your EIV weather forecast. Let's take a look at tomorrow's weather across the nation. We start over on the west coast. Watch for a few scattered showers in Seattle. The high temperature will only be in the low 50s. After the sunny day down in Los Angeles, rain will return again tomorrow with a high in the upper 50s. Denver will see partly cloudy skies with a temperature of around 58 degrees. The Dallas-Fort Worth area can expect highs in the upper 80s and partly cloudy skies. Similar cloudy skies in Chicago will keep the high temperatures around 37 degrees. Look for sun and temperatures in the mid-80s for Miami. While in New York, they get a break from today's wintry weather, mostly sunny skies with a high temperature of 42 degrees. That's it for your EIV weather forecast. Now back to Greg and Wynn.
Thanks, Mike. Still ahead, EIV's Cameron Wong takes an in-depth look at a new health problem in contact sports.
And we'll tell you why menthol cigarettes might not be in stores too much longer. All this and more coming up after the break.
Welcome back. I'm Caitlin Desjardins with your EIV Sports Update. After 6 seasons, the Tennessee Volunteers will be looking for new leadership. Coach Bruce Pearl has been fired for questionable behavior off the court. He admitted to having a barbecue with potential high school recruits and then lying to the NCAA about it. Now it seems Tennessee's focus has changed from recruiting new players to recruiting a new coach. And in the seemingly unlikely event that there is an NFL next year, the opening kickoff might be a little different. The idea is to move kickoffs from the 30 to the 35-yard line and to move touchbacks up to the 25-yard line. The committee says this will keep players safer, but it'll risk one of the most exciting parts of the game. Not as many kickoffs returned for touchdown? Not so fun. I don't see how an extra 5 yards is going to keep that much of a difference in safety. And in hockey news, fans won't be seeing Matt Cook on the ice for a while. The Penguins' left wing is being suspended 10 games after elbowing Ryan McDonough in the head during a game. Cook's suspension could be a problem for the Penguins, who are also missing Evgeny Malkin and Sidney Crosby to injuries. Cook has already been suspended by the league 5 times, and his latest suspension will cost him more than $200,000. And in other hockey-related news, researchers at Boston University have diagnosed a new brain-related injury to head trauma. EIV's Cameron Wong has the story.
Head injuries and concussions are a common occurrence in high-contact sports such as hockey. Coaches and medics frequently cite the dangers of a head injury, but few know just how serious they can be. According to recent findings, a brain degenerative disease known as CTE can arise because of repeated head trauma. Researchers at Boston University's medical campus lead the investigation into this little-known illness.
CTE stands for chronic traumatic encephalopathy. It's a progressive neurodegenerative disease that affects the brain and in some cases the spinal cord. And it's thought basically to be caused, at least in part, by repetitive brain trauma.
Helmets and protective gear is sometimes touted as the answer to the problem, but some athletes say it may even have a detrimental effect in preventing injury.
Because the way that protective gear is getting larger and bulkier, you're not afraid to go full out and hit someone anymore. You can go as fast as you want into a guy who's the same size as you, and you have no fear of getting injured when you're giving the hit.
Because research into CTE is currently at its infant stage, there is no known cure. Luckily, most people are unlikely to sustain head injuries severe enough to cause long-term brain damage. Athletes, though, should take extra care in light of these findings to minimize the risk of injury. This is Cameron Wong, EIV News.
You could call it a case of saving face. A Texas man has received the first full facial transplant in the country. Dallas Weens received the new face last week at Boston's Brigham and Women's Hospital. His forehead, lips, nose, and certain muscles and nerves were all replaced. Weens, who works as a construction worker, suffered severe facial damage in a power line accident in 2000. Now the U.S. military is hoping to use this surgery as a model for helping soldiers with facial wounds. In other news, a proposed menthol cigarette ban is sounding all too familiar to smokers. Nearly a year after the FDA placed a ban on fruit-flavored tobacco, an FDA advisory committee released a study revealing the number of menthol smokers is on the rise. A high percentage of these smokers are young adults. The committee says menthol entices kids to smoke and increases the number of smokers overall. A decision on the ban is now left up to the FDA. And most kids can't stand sitting in a car seat. Well, restless toddlers will have to cope for a little while longer. The American Academy of Pediatrics is recommending parents keep their toddlers in a rear-facing car seat until the child's second birthday. The AAP's advice is based on a national study which found children under 2 are 75% less likely to get hurt in a rear-facing seat. Safety advocates are hoping parents will stick to this recommendation.
Well, Greg, it's been a tough week for celebrities.
Yeah, it definitely has when a famous movie star has passed away and a musician shot in the hand. For more, we go to Bryce Fallon.
Thanks, Greg and Wynn. I'm Bryce Fallon, bringing you the latest in world culture. Legendary screen actress Elizabeth Taylor passed away yesterday morning at the age of 79. Taylor died of congestive heart failure after being in the hospital for about 6 weeks. The two-time Oscar-winning actress, more known for her personal struggles and beauty than her talent, has been struggling with health for many years now. A controversial life of 8 marriages, addiction, and physical ailments ravaged Taylor, but she still remained a prominent public figure and a spokeswoman for such causes as AIDS research. Elizabeth Taylor certainly leaves behind a remarkable legacy. And in other news, musician Wyclef Jean was shot in the hand in Haiti's capital on Saturday. His visit was to help campaign for one of the current presidential candidates when he was shot while getting out of his car. The entertainer was making a return visit to Port-au-Prince, where he was once a hopeful in the presidential race himself. John was rushed to the hospital and has sustained no other injuries. And I guess that's one way to tell someone you really didn't like their campaign slogan. And the highly anticipated adaptation of the popular book series The Hunger Games finally has its leading lady. Oscar-nominated sexy young actress Jennifer Lawrence has been cast in the role of resilient Katniss Everdeen. The Winter's Bone star stomped out other ingenue hopefuls such as Haley Steinfeld and Abigail Breslin. While fans of the book have been a little peeved, Lawrence has won the approval of not only director Gary Ross, but also author Suzanne Collins. Twilight only wishes it was this cool. And that's it for this week's Culture News. Now back to Greg and Wynn.
Thanks, Bryce. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for you tonight. But remember, you can always find us online at eivnews.com.
Thanks for watching EIV News. Have a great weekend.
This has been a presentation of EIV News and Emerson Independent Video. For more, visit us online at eivnews.com.